Hello, everybody. I'm Jackson Robb for the Brevard Sports Network, and these are my fast thoughts from Friday Night Lights here in Week 7 in Brevard County. A little bit different than our typical post-game shows, but I'm just going to break down my fast thoughts from every game and what I can take away from each of the final scores. So without further ado, let's jump right in, starting with the game of the week in which Miami Norland came in to Richard Dick Blake Stadium and absolutely dispatched the 9th-ranked Cocoa Tigers 33-14. In this game, Cocoa never really hung around. They led 7-0 on an opening drive score from Brady Hart to Javen Boggs. After that, it was a quick score from Miami Norland, and after that, they never looked back, scoring the next 33 points before Cocoa responded since that opening touchdown. And really tonight for Cocoa, there's not much that I can say right now and right here that hasn't already been said undoubtedly. The offense never really got going, and something that we thought was really not a possibility for any team to do across the state of Florida was to slow down this offense, slow down Hart and Boggs. And Miami did that. Miami Norland did that incredibly quickly and incredibly often, completely limiting this offense, forcing 4 turnovers, 3 off of Brady Hart in the first half alone. Javen Boggs with 1 touchdown and a good amount of receptions, but besides that, they did limit Boggs' production defensively. Cocoa's defense was not really evident in the first half. Norland just able to score at will. In the second half, Cocoa's defense did come up big plenty of times, only laying up 1 score late in the fourth quarter. But at that point, the game was already out of reach because the offense really just couldn't get going tonight. There just seems to be something amiss with the Cocoa Tigers right now, still lacking the signature win after dropping games to IMG, Venice, and Miami Norland back-to-back. Next week, they have a trip over to Apopka on Thursday night against a solid Blue Darters program that is going to give them a run for their money if they're not careful. Cocoa needs to diagnose the problem right now and whatever it is inside the program and why that they cannot turn in some of these consistent performances that we are expecting. But for right now, Cocoa falls to 3-3 and does have some question marks looming for the rest of this season. Moving on to our next game of tonight on the Brevard Sports Network as well, MCC absolutely just runs over Halifax Academy at home, winning it 49-0. Touchdown, programming nab, touchdown, Noah Flores touchdown pass, Romel Hernandez touchdown pass, Noah Flores touchdown pass or touchdown reception, Howard Dewitt with a touchdown reception, Caden Kelly with a touchdown run, and Advanced Sanger fumble recovery in the end zone defensively. Seems like all the facets were playing together tonight for MCC, and this is a very good football team now sitting at 5-1. And I understand the points about strength of schedule and Halifax Academy and the quality of opponent, but the thing is, this team absolutely demolished them, did exactly what they needed to do against a program like that, and in my opinion, that's all they really need to do. The offense still seems to be humming. Brogan McNabb playing at a very high level. Obviously, the defense pitching a shutout and scoring a touchdown. Perfect game from that side of the football. They got a big game coming up soon next week at True North Classical Academy. So they will have to travel for that one, and we'll see how the Hustlers can fare there. But sitting at 5-1 currently in our Super 7 poll as a top 5 team in the county. And I think they're backing that up with performances like this to see the offense, Hernandez, Flores, Kelly, Dewitt, and obviously McNabb leading the way. This offense is absolutely humming, and they're one of the most consistent teams in Brevard County, whether you like it or not. They're playing a very high level of football week in and week out. My next game to look forward to is Melbourne and Bayside tonight, in which the Melbourne Bulldogs pick up a solid road win against a retooling Bayside program that is already a little bit better than I think a lot of people realize. So for Melbourne tonight, their scores came with a Ty Field touchdown reception from Michael Rogers. They also had a Michael Rogers 3-yard touchdown run, a Camarion Johnson touchdown reception, and a Michael Rogers 24-yard touchdown run. For Bayside tonight, we had a Caden Brabham touchdown run and 2 Caden Brabham touchdown runs, 1 from 3 yards out, 1 from 10 yards out. And the takeaways from this one for Melbourne, I did expect them to win this football game. This is a good Bayside team, but I do think Melbourne is still solid, and I think a lot of that talent they were able to bring in this offseason. This offense is pretty solid. They've had some question marks at quarterback. It seems like tonight they've settled with Michael Rogers, and that's what they're rolling with for now at least, which is a good thing. I think Melbourne looks good tonight in a 14-point win over a scrappy Bayside team, a Bayside team that undoubtedly want to win a game like this against a Melbourne team. Melbourne is now 4-3, looking forward to the rest of their season, and that's a good spot to be in if you're Melbourne. Looking forward now, you have a game next week against Lyman on the road, and Lyman comes in 2-4 in the 239th ranked team in the state of Florida. If you're Melbourne, that is a team ranked below you, and that is a winnable game despite having to travel. And for Melbourne coming up, it's Lyman, Vieira, and O'Galley. Some tough games in there, but definitely some winnable games and some statement games for Melbourne as they try and make a playoff push here. A good win tonight over Bayside, and all things considered, it just seems like a solid team performance and just a gritty win for Bayside. They fall to 3-5, and they've taken now 4 losses in a row after starting an impressive 3-1 with losses to Harmony, Centennial, Astronaut, and Melbourne. And for their Sunshine State, their first season in the Sunshine State Athletics, the SSAA, this is all around still a solid season. This is a tough schedule for what they're dealing with, coming off an 0-10 season. They've lost 4 straight. They'll look to get things righted next week down at Cocoa Beach, a game that I think they can definitely win. And I'm looking forward to seeing what those two teams can do when they clash, and it should be a good game next week. This week for Bayside, it just seems like Caden Braben was doing everything offensively, and obviously I can't see the full stats right now, but for Bayside, I still think this is a good season for them. They just need to get back in the winning direction right now. Losing 4 straight could really demoralize a team, and I hope for Billy Miller's group that is not the case. But tonight, Melbourne just wins a tight game that 14-6 at half. They led 20-6 into the fourth quarter, and at that point, they were just controlling the game from start to finish. So a good win for Melbourne, honestly, and they have some big games coming up, undoubtedly, to close out their season. Next team we're going to look at here is Astronaut, and just congratulations, Astronaut, sitting at 5-2 with Coach Halleck's group pointed in exactly the right direction. This is a good win over Sebastian River program. That is a sneaky good team. They beat them 35-21 tonight. Their scores, they don't have their scoring update, scoring breakdown online, but all I can tell you is it was 7-6 at the end of the first quarter, 7-6 at halftime, 20-6 going into the fourth, and then they win at 35-21 as a 15-15 split in the fourth quarter. But for this group, for Astronaut this year, sitting at 5-2 is just impressive. They have wins over Discovery, Gateway, Space Coast, Bayside, and Sebastian River. Their only losses are to Holy Trinity and American Heritage Delray Beach. And they have 3 games to go. They have their 2 district games next up with the Villages Charter, a bye week, and then Cocoa, which is going to be big. And then they finish at home versus Titusville. I think if they can take a game over the Villages Charter, finish the season out at 6-4 with losses to Cocoa and Titusville, because no disrespect to Astronaut, but those are going to be tough games, and we know that. I think this could be a sneaky good 6-4 team that finishes with a winning record. And it's confusing right now, admittedly, for what the FHSAA is looking at to put teams in the playoffs. But at 6-4, Astronauts doing everything they can to try and push themselves into the playoffs. And we'll see what 2A looks like at the cut line. If they're close, if not, we'll see. But at 6-4, that's an incredibly successful season for Astronaut, and a big win tonight over Sebastian River. So congratulations to the War Eagles again. They are 5-2 with 3 games to go in this season, and we'll see what the War Eagles have in store for their final 3 games. Next game up, we have Winter Springs and Space Coast. It was a tough loss tonight for the Space Coast Vipers, falling to Winter Springs 16-0 and ending their short winning streak. It's an understandable loss. Winter Springs is a now 5-1 football team, and they're not bad whatsoever. They're a 5A football team as well. This is an understandable loss. I would have liked to see Space Coast put up some points in this one. A shutout is never great. This is a good offense, so the fact that Winter Springs was able to shut that down, their defense only gives up 16 points in a loss. It is what it is. At half, they trailed 7-0. Going into the fourth, it was 13-0. And then Winter Springs capped it off with a field goal in the fourth. They did give up a defensive touchdown with a 36-yard scoop and score by Winter Springs. So defensively, they only give up 10 points. There's things you can build off of for Coach Owen's group. The defense seems like they played well. The offense just couldn't get going, not getting any points on the board. But they are still 5-3 with 2 games to go against Oxbridge Academy coming up next in 2 weeks after they have a bye week coming up. That is a 4-1 football team out of West Palm Beach. That is going to be a tough one. And then they finish out with First Academy, which is a 2-4 team that I think they can beat. I could see this team finishing the season, out at 6-4, and that would be solid. 7-3 is on the table as well. So for Space Coast, the future is still ahead of them. I think they're building a lot of great things. This is a tough loss, but it's one you can take with a solid Winter Springs team, and look forward to your next matchup against Oxbridge Academy. I still have faith in a lot of the young talent Space Coast has on that offense, especially. There's a lot of firepower there, a lot of very good players. Zion Sandy, Chris McDonald, and all those great receivers that they have out there. Space Coast has the talent. Losses like this just can't get them down. That's the biggest thing for Space Coast. Don't get down after a loss. Look forward to the next game and focus on winning that one, because the season and their destiny is still very well ahead of them. Next matchup tonight that I'm gonna give my thoughts on is gonna be Mandarin and Rockledge. This is a very good Mandarin football team. Don't get it twisted. They come into this game top 20 in the state of Florida, and they do knock off Rockledge 24-7. Rockledge actually led it at the end of the first quarter, 7-2. It doesn't say who scored their touchdown. They led it 7-2 at half, trailed 10-7 into the fourth, gave up 2 late touchdowns that put it away for Mandarin. But Rockledge led at halftime. They got outscored 22-0 in the second half. Not what you want to have. You want to play that full, complete game. But it seems like Rockledge hung with Mandarin as long as they could. Again, top 20 ranked team in the state of Florida. This is a good Mandarin team. And we talked about Miami-Norland. This team is only 2 spots ranked below Miami-Norland, who just dominated Cocoa in all facets of the game. So for Rockledge, this is an acceptable loss, and I hate talking about moral losses, but it is what it is for Rockledge. They're still 3-2 with a game coming, mind you, on Tuesday, or the Tuesday after this next week's game that they play against Vero Beach. So yeah, they'll have Vero Beach and then turn around and go to Deltona. So they still have 5 games to go with Vero Beach, Deltona, Pine Ridge, New Smyrna Beach, and the Barbecue Bowl at Cocoa. There's still a lot to learn about this Rockledge team right now. This is an acceptable loss. Their only other loss is O'Galley so far this season. 2 top 20 teams right now ranked in the state of Florida. So it's understandable for Rockledge. And honestly, I do think this team is getting better. I think Coach Giscombe's group is building a solid foundation, and with still half of their season ahead, unlike anyone else in Brevard County, they still have a lot to prove and a lot to show for the rest of the season. This is a tough loss, especially when you led at halftime, but that shows that there is somewhere to build on for Rockledge, and we'll see what they can do in the second half of the season with some big games coming up and some proving games against Pine Ridge, New Smyrna Beach, Deltona, and then some tougher ones. We'll see what they can do versus Vero Beach, and then obviously Cocoa in the Barbecue Bowl is going to be a tough one, but with how Cocoa has been playing recently, who knows what it's going to look like down there on November 1st. So for Rockledge, still so much ahead of them. And honestly, this is a solid performance. And, they came in this week in our Super 7 at number 7. But we'll see if they make any movement upwards, or I doubt downwards with a loss like this. It is what it is for the Rockledge Raiders. Next up, it is the Titusville Terriers without Coach John Holmes tonight. They fall 33-10 to a good Seminole program. And it's understandable. This is the 17th ranked team in the state of Florida. This team, Seminole, was ranked above Miami-Norland and just above Mandarin as well, who we both talked about tonight. Titusville loses by 23. We saw Heritage lose this team by 20 earlier. That's the only other really comparison we can give from a Brevard County team that played this Seminole team. It's just a good program, just to be honest. But the problem is for Titusville, Seminole's undefeated, but Titusville is now 2-4. Their scores came, they trailed 27-7 at the half. They had a 35-yard touchdown pass in the second quarter and then a field goal in the fourth. After that game had kind of been set in stone for them. They have 3 district games in a row to come up with. Satellite, Merritt Island, and Palm Bay. Already losing to O'Galley hurts, but they can still try and put themselves in that district conversation by beating Satellite, Merritt Island, and Palm Bay. All winnable games in the Astronaut to close. I could see this team going 4-0 to finish and finishing 6-4. The X Factor key matchup for them is going to be on October 18th at Merritt Island. That could be a game that could put them at 5-5 if they don't win in 3rd overall in the district, and that's where they start having some playoff murkiness with their best win to date being a solid, respectable win against Spruce Creek. Their wins right now are against Vieira and Spruce Creek, and a tough loss this week for this group, currently coming in at number 3 in our Super 7 rankings for this past week. This is a good Titusville team that I know still wishes they were able to get the win over O'Galley in whatever fashion that one ended. It's a tough break that they didn't pick up that one, but this was a tough Seminole team, and they just couldn't come out on top tonight. Tough break for Titusville, but they're definitely be looking forward because their whole district besides O'Galley is still in front of them on their schedule, and there's a lot that they can build off of with those games. Next game up, the only score update, it says at halftime, Spruce Creek led Vieira 35-21. That may be a final as well. It's a little murky there. Could not find a definitive final, but this is a good Spruce Creek team that Titusville did just beat. Spruce Creek comes in ranked in the top 60 in the state of Florida. It seems like Vieira may have lost this game, and it's understandable, and it's a much better performance, it seems like, than the 38-0 loss we saw last week at the hands of the MCC Hustlers. So for Vieira, it's been an interesting 4 weeks with a tough loss late to Titusville, a big win over Tohope Caliga, a big loss to MCC, and then a closer loss to a good Spruce Creek team. But either way, a loss there would drop them to 3-4 with a big game next week, which you'll see on the Brevard Sports Network at home against Kissimmee, Osceola, and then Melbourne, back-to-back district games for them, which they still control their destiny in that department, and then Merritt Island to close. That's 3 tough games, though, sitting at 3-4 to try and push themselves into a playoff position. I think this is a team that could be a playoff caliber team. It's just what Vieira team shows up. The one we saw beat the doors off of Toho, or the one that just really never had a chance versus MCC. There's just two different facets to this team, and we'll see what they can bring the last 3 weeks after a close loss and a respectable loss to Spruce Creek. But at this point in the year, you don't want to take respectable losses. You want to win these types of football games. So for Viera tonight, it looks like they lost it to Spruce Creek. No official final posted, but from the latest score update, they were trailing. And all things considered for Viera, it's understandable, but there's some big games coming up that they need to sway their season with victories. And, I'll be keeping a keen eye on them again. Next week, you'll see them on the Brevard Sports Network in their first district game against Kissimmee Osceola, who is another very, very good state football team. Next game tonight, Palm Bay unfortunately falls short, as they will fall to 0-7 on the season. And you hate it for that group down there in Palm Bay. And they played a close one tonight with Martin County, falling 20-7. When it was all said and done, it was on the road against now a 4-2 Martin County team. It's a respectable loss for Palm Bay, but the problem is now you just need to find a win. In the next 3 weeks are arguably your 3 toughest games of the entire season, with O'Galley, Titusville, and Vero Beach. It's going to be tough. We'll see if Palm Bay can find a win somewhere here in year 1 of the Mitchell Brown era. Right now sitting at 0-7 with 3 tough games to go. This was one against Martin County. They hung in there, maybe had a shot to win, especially after the tough late loss to Satellite a week ago. So definitely a tough pill to swallow for Palm Bay going forward. And, I hope for their sake, I do really hope that they can find a win in these next 3 weeks. It is not going to be easy with O'Galley, Titusville, and Vero Beach, but Palm Bay is going to bring tough football every week. You know that with the Palm Bay program. And we'll see if they can eke out a win somewhere to avoid a winless season. That is always the hope. And a tough loss tonight, 20-7, where they gave up all 20 of the points to Martin County in the third quarter. It was 0-0 at halftime, according to this. And they just couldn't hang in the second half. Tough break for the Palm Bay Pirates. Final 3 teams here to go over. The next one is going to be Cocoa Beach, falling at the hands of Masters Academy, 49-0. It's a tough break for Ted Kimmy's group, who now fall to 2-4 and are riding 3 straight losses since beating Winter Springs earlier this season. And coming up, they have some interesting games. Next week is versus Bayside. We talked about that earlier. And then Holy Trinity, 2 in-county opponents. Will be very interested to see what they can bring to those games, and what Cocoa Beach can do after 3 straight losses. 2 of them close. The Masters Academy tonight, not very close, but Masters Academy sits at 6-1 right now, 211th ranked in the state of Florida. But on top of that, they are number 2 overall in all of the Sunshine State Athletics. So this is a solid team, but 49-0, not exactly the performance you want to see with a shutout loss for Cocoa Beach. Inevitably, they will rebound, though. This is a good offense with Remy Vignier leading the group. A lot of good talent on this Cocoa Beach team to keep an eye on. And I do think they will rebound, but tonight just wasn't their night in a loss versus Masters Academy. Next up, we will finish out with my 8-man reactions as Merritt Island Christian continues the perfect season. Now it's 7-0 after beating Countryside Christian 50-16. This team continues to just put up points this season. They put up 46, 38, 30, 48, 34, 45, and 50 this season. And this team is just incredible. Merritt Island Christian looking to go back-to-back state championships after winning an 8-man state title last year, sitting at 7-0. And nobody really getting that close to knocking them off. They got 3 games to go in the big rivalry next week against Calvary Chapel. That's going to be interesting. Very excited to see that one and see if they can advance to 8-0. They have Calvary Chapel, Geneva, and City of Life Christian Academy, their last 3 games, to try and complete the perfect regular season and look onto the playoffs to defend their championship. Genuinely, this is if you don't know much about 8-man football, this is one of the best teams in the entirety of the state of Florida. They are number 2 in the state of Florida in all of 8-man. So when it comes to 8-man football, Merritt Island Christian is the standard. This is an incredible football team. And again, they just continue to win. They're scoring tonight. Nathaniel Buccio with a touchdown run. Caleb Richardson with a touchdown run. Nathaniel Buccio with another touchdown run. Trey Nevad with a touchdown reception. Nathaniel Buccio with a touchdown run. Carter Stevenson with a touchdown run. And Caleb Richardson with another touchdown run for Merritt Island Christian to cap off a 50-point night as they advance to 7-0. And lastly, but definitely not least, Calvary Chapel advances to 4-4 with a nice win tonight over Oasis Christian, 30-8. And now they set their sights on Merritt Island Christian next week in Masters Academy to close out their season. Sitting at 500 with 2 games to go. A huge one next week at Merritt Island Christian in that rivalry game. The only 2 8-man teams in Brevard County. Calvary Chapel right now, the 17th best team in all of the state of Florida in 8-man football. Now at 4-4. A nice win tonight over Oasis Christian for that group and Coach Carroll's group. Love to see it for the Eagles, and I hope I'm hoping for a great game next week with Merritt Island Christian. Then hope for their sake they can go out and beat Masters Academy to close out the regular season for Calvary Chapel. But it just seems like we have two very, very good Brevard County 8-man football teams, which is always great. Because if you don't know 8-man football, it's fun. And Merritt Island Christian, especially one of the best teams in the entire state of Florida, and Calvary Chapel, a very, very good up-and-coming program as well. Again, looking forward to next week one more time. Melbourne will play Lyman on Thursday night, as well as Cocoa will travel to Apopka on Thursday night. That will be on the Brevard Sports Network. On Friday night, and the typical Friday night lights, we will have Calvary Chapel at Merritt Island Christian in 8-man football. And then for your typical 11-man, Vero Beach at Rockledge. That'll be a very big football game to keep an eye on. Westwood will be at Heritage. We will have Merritt Island at O'Gallion, a big district clash at O'Galley. MCC will travel to True North Classical Academy. Satellite will travel to Titusville. The First Academy, a 6-0 team in a district game, will travel to Holy Trinity. Kissimmee Osceola in a district game will travel to Vieira. That will be on the Brevard Sports Network. Bayside will travel to Cocoa Beach in an intriguing matchup between Brevard County foes. The Villages Charter will travel to Astronaut in a district showdown there as well. A lot of district play getting kicked off a week from tonight, and that will bring us a lot of playoff implications undoubtedly. And one more time, we'll run through the scoreboard from tonight, and that'll cap off Fast Thoughts with myself, Jackson Robb. Final scores tonight: Miami Norland beats Cocoa 33-14. MCC beats Halifax Academy 49-0. Melbourne beat Bayside 27-13. Astronaut beat Sebastian River 35-21. Winter Springs beat Space Coast 16-0. Mandarin beat Rockledge 24-7. Seminole beat Titusville 33-10. Spruce Creek, final score that was reported, beat Vieira 35-21. Martin County beat Palm Bay 20-7. Masters Academy beat Cocoa Beach 49-0. Merritt Island Christian beat Countryside Christian 50-16. And Calvary Chapel beat Oasis Christian 30-8. So thanks everyone for listening. This was Fast Thoughts with Jackson Robb from tonight's Friday night football action on the Brevard Sports Network.